Greetings. My name is Jim Wickens from nfldraftfanatics.com, and this video and podcast is going to be a demonstration of using Fanatic mode on the New York Giants. So at nfldraftfanatics.com, every team has a unique player board. So if we were to go look at the New York Giants, so we're at team needs, and if you go to the New York Giants on the far right, you can see their player list. So according to the fans that have used the simulator, the players at the top are the ones that get mock drafted to the Giants the most. So Marvin Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams, you see Alt Wiggins, you see Daniels, you see Neighbors, you see Drake May, and you see Olu, and you see Kool-Aid McKinstry here at number 9. So I want you to observe the order of the players, okay? There's a really good chance that the order of those players is going to change as a result of the demonstration. So that's something I'll show you at the very end of the video. The whole video should take about 20 minutes plus or minus. So we're talking about the New York Giants. We want to do a 4-round draft, okay? And we want to talk about this button called Fanatic mode. So this button defaults to off. Fanatic mode, and when you turn it on, it will default to 2. I'm flipping it to 5. So what did I just do? So Fanatic mode, I want to do a unique mock draft, period. That's what Fanatic mode is. It guarantees uniqueness during your mock draft. This button set to 5 says I want to do 5 unique mocks for the Giants. It will not let me duplicate any picks during those 5 mocks. So if I pick a player, if I pick Marvin Harrison Jr. in one of them, he won't be available the next time. I'm going to have to find a new player. Okay. So, and we have the Giants picked. So I'm going to hit start right there. And the simulator is going to go do its thing. And it's going to give us a player board for the New York Giants once it picks for the teams ahead of them in the draft order. Okay. So if we look, it went Harrison, Williams, Olu, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.C. Latham. So if you're looking for the quarterbacks, that's who's there. And if we look at the wide receivers, I would say Neighbors. Now, Neighbors is currently 6th on the draft card right now. So I'm going to pick Neighbors. So as a result of me picking Neighbors, did he go higher than 6? We will find out at the end, and we'll look at the player board again. You can look at the player board right now. I'm not going to look at the player board until the end of the demonstration. Okay, round 2. Okay, offensive tackle, cornerback, edge. Okay, so offensive tackle is looking moderately thin in round 2. I don't know that I see an offensive tackle who I would consider in round 2. But if you disagree with me, tweet me at NFL Draft Fanatics and tell me how wrong I am. So the next positions I'll look at are edge, corner, and we've already done wide receiver. So let's do edge and corner. Okay, so this board's looking a little bit better. And I am going to take Lassiter, who is 48th on the Giants draft card, with their 2nd round pick. Okay. Giants have another 2nd round pick. And is there an offensive tackle here that we like? Okay. I'm going to go with Monheim, who's 96th on their draft card in round 2. Might be a little bit rich, but I was able to address a need. Okay. So at this point, we haven't done edge, safety, running back, edge, safety. So Jack Sawyer's there in round 3. Wow. Definitely going to do Sawyer there. Okay. So I'm going through and I'm doing a mock draft and stuff like that. And the Giants, I believe, have a 4th round pick. We're about to find out. So we have one more pick to make. Safety, defensive tackle. So in round 4, I definitely like Wingo. Okay. So that completes my first mock draft. I said at the beginning of the demonstration, when I set Fanatic mode, we're going to do 5. So what you're going to notice the simulator do, I picked Neighbors last time, and the simulator picks them before the Giants pick this time. So this will be a unique player board. And if you look, we didn't see Wiggins or McKinstry last time. So if this is the player board to the Giants, what would they do? I'm going to be a fan of taking Kool-Aid as a best player available type situation, if that was what the board was. And again, if you disagree with me, feel free to tell me why you disagree. You can find me on Twitter at nfldraftfanatic. Okay. No, I am Fanatic. I believe Lassiter. Yeah, if you look, I picked Lassiter last time. Simulator makes sure Lassiter is off the board before my pick. So what does that board look like? So the Giants need edge, and there are some good edges sitting there. I want you to observe that Isaac is currently 170 on the player board. I'm going to take him to the Giants at the top around 2. And we're going to check to see where Isaac was on the player board when the demonstration is done. Okay, and we have another second round pick. If Nubin is there in round 2 to the Giants do have safety as a need. Nubin sitting there in round 2, I think that's a great pick. He was already the top player on their board. What does that mean? Well, if the simulator was picking, and the simulator would just go grab Nubin because he was the top player on the board. So if the fans pick the top player and the simulator's picking the top player, other users will see that when they do a mock draft. So, for example, if you do a mock draft for a different team, did Nubin go to the Giants in the second round? Because he was at the top of their board. So the fans at nfldraftfanatics.com have control of the player board. You have control of the player board by doing mock drafts. So the more you pick a player, the more they move up. Okay, so offensive tackle and guard. So out of this list, if you're the New York Giants in round 3, what are you doing? So I see Kieran there, and this is a round 3 pick. So I think the risk is worth the reward. He was 61st on the player board at the time I picked him in round 3. Okay. Simulator's going, doing what it does. And apparently the Giant, okay, this is round 4 for the Giants. So in round 4, what would the Giants do? I don't think I've taken a wide receiver. I see Anais Smith, so that would be a good pick. I think it addresses a need. And that finishes my second of the 5 unique mocks that I told that I was going to do. So this is a demonstration of Fanatic mode, unique to nfldraftfanatics.com. And the purpose of Fanatic mode is to give the user a unique mock drafting experience. So this is the first time that we have seen Drake May available to the Giants. So you're saying, well, why isn't May higher on the Giants board? How often does somebody pick him to the Giants? Okay, he's 7th on the board now. I think if he falls to the Giants, that's the pick. So May should move higher than 7, but if you ignore him, he's going to move further down the list. So players that you ignore will move down on the board, right? So how did Drake May not be number 1? People ignored him when they were doing a Giants mock before. Okay. And you can see that the players I've taken before, so like I took Kieran, and the simulator makes sure that he is taken before my pick. Okay. I see JT here. That would be a good edge for the Giants in round 2. Another round 2 pick. I'm taking the top player on the board. He addressed the team need. Again, if I pick the top player on the board, remember the simulator is, if somebody's drafting for one of the other 31 teams, the simulator would have been picking that top player to the Giants anyway. So if you agree with the top player on the board, that's telling the simulator that that is a good pick for that team at that round. And that tends to be how the simulator starts giving you different picks for teams relative to other simulators, as well as giving the fans control of who their team is drafting. If you don't agree with who the top player is, look at some of the other videos on the YouTube channel for the New York Giants. And for example, there's a first round challenge, second round challenge, third round challenge, where if you want to manipulate the top part of a team's board, you're going to be able to do that. So I'm going to take Brendan Rice in round 3. That's Jerry Rice's son, if you didn't already know. And then I have one more pick. We're probably going to need to go tackle on either offense or defense. So actually at this point, it's either offensive tackle or corner because I haven't taken either of those. So I'm going to take Pritchett. Well, actually, Jack Nelson. Giants definitely need offensive line help. Okay, so at this point, I believe I've done 3 unique mocks. I believe this is the beginning of the 4th. Yeah, so this is the beginning of the 4th unique mock draft. Okay, and again, it's going to give us a board. So the question would be, if you're the Giants, you have the chance to take one of the 2 best offensive tackles in the draft, or do you go corner? Okay, and if you were curious what quarterbacks were left, here were the quarterbacks that were left. Okay, so I am going to go alt, who is the number 1 player on their board. That's who the simulator would have taken anyway. Okay, so then what would the Giants do in round 2? I see Cooper Beebe. He's 40th on their player board. So I'm basically saying the Giants just overhauled their offensive line, taking tackle guard, and then they need edge and corner. And I see Kalen King sitting there, the second pick of round 2. He's currently 49th on their player board. And then we are in round 3. They need defensive line and edge. I like Dorless. Every single time you pick a player, they're moving up the team's draft card. How far up? The later you go in the draft, it's not going to be high. So nearly every single player you saw me pick in round 1 is going to move up the board. Some of the players in round 2 will move up. And then for rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, to get a player to move up, you need a lot of people to agree with you. And here would be the way that I would explain it. How many third-round picks would somebody have to trade to get to the round 1 pick? The answer to that's about 20. So if one person can pick a player and they move up in round 1, it would take 20 people to pick a player in round 3 for them to get to the top of the board in round 3. Now, there's other ways to manipulate the draft card. So if you don't like the fact that you would have to do 20 mocks, in some ways I agree with you. You will see that fans have a lot of control over rounds 1 and 2. And then there's going to be a degree of randomness in rounds 3 through 7. And that's also part of what the simulator is looking for, is to be more random and not give people like narcissistic control over every pick that their team makes. Okay, so at this point, we are in round 4. I'm just looking through the player list, seeing if I recognize a player that's dropped. But so far, this board for round 4, I see a couple of players that I almost like, or would be, let's say, a value. But Roman Wilson is probably, and he was number 1 on the board in round 4. So I got Roman Wilson in round 4, which I'm moderately patting myself on the back for, right? I don't think, okay, I don't want to say, I think that's a tremendous value pick. Okay, so now we're in round 5. This is the 5th of 5 unique mock drafts. The 4 players I took in round 1 are not available. So what do the Giants do? Would they go O'Duns over Wiggins? And offensive tackle, I'll even say that Mims, if we had to compare the wide receiver to the corner. So if this is the board, Wiggins, O'Duns, Franklin, Fuaga, Mims, I'm going to say Mims. But if you've got a differing opinion, let me know. And keep in mind, I set Fanatic mode to 5. If you had set it to 8, that board is going to be thin by the 6th, 7th, and 8th time when you're looking, because it won't let you pick the same player twice. It's going to get harder than the decision that I just had to make. Okay, so we're now at the Giants' first, second round pick. I went offensive tackle round 1. What wide receivers are there? I see Polk, who's 55. But Mitchell or Polk in round 2, I'm going to take the player that was further down. And then the second pick in round 2 for the Giants, would they go linebacker? Or do you like any of these defensive linemen in round 2? I am going to take Landon Jackson. Okay, so at this point, I have to remind myself who I've picked. I've gone offensive tackle, wide receiver, defensive lineman. So edge and corner, I am going to take the top player on their board, which was Marshall. And I believe that's going to conclude this Fanatic mode demonstration. Or do the Giants have one more pick? They have one more pick. Okay, and at this point, let's look at linebacker safety. What about guard? So already in round 4, the board is looking, and I'm going to take Gabe Hall, even though I've already taken a defensive lineman. That's the right player for round 4. If he falls to round 4, he should be at the top of the draft card. So that's the challenge of Fanatic mode, is when you're looking at a board and it's not as favorable as that first mock draft that you did. That's the idea behind it. Okay, so here's the Giants list of players that I picked. I'm going to open up their draft card in a different window. So in this window, we're going to team needs. Always takes it an extra second when you're on a podcast, right? And we look at the Giants and we go to their player list over here to the right. Okay, so let's look at the Giants player list and let's look up where Neighbors is, for example. Okay, Neighbors is now 4th. Lassiter is now 15th. Monheim moved up to 22. Okay, So I took him in the second round. I think he was in the 70s on their draft card. He moved up to 22 by me picking him in the second round. Okay, Kool-Aid McKinstry is now 9th. Okay, Adissa Isaac is now 29th on their draft card. If you remember, he was like 170. I picked him in the second round, and he went from 170 to 29. Okay. Drake May is 5th. Alt is 3rd. Kalen King is now 21. I think Mims was 10th at the time I picked him. He's still 10. Okay. So hopefully you see that the player boards change as a result of any mock draft you do at nfldraftfanatics.com. This was a demonstration of Fanatic mode. And if you missed the beginning of the podcast, come back and check it out on YouTube. But the button that I used was this one right here. I flipped it on and I set it to 5, which said I wanted to do 5 unique mock drafts. And then I had to set my round count. So I did 5 consecutive 4-round mocks. Fanatic mode says each mock is guaranteed to be unique. If you have questions on this functionality, you have questions on the player boards at nfldraftfanatics.com, please find me on Twitter. I'm Jim. My name is Jim. My Twitter handle is at nfldraftfanatic. There's no I in Fanatic on my Twitter. Find me, tweet me, message me. Tell me what you either like or don't like about player boards that move. At nfldraftfanatics.com, fans have control of the player boards. This is a mock draft that is determined by the fans. It is not determined by the big board of an analyst. So we're giving fans control of their team's player boards. And the way you take control of it is by doing mock drafts. The more mock drafts you do, the more you influence your team's player board. Okay. My name is Jim Wickens. Thank you very much for watching for 22 minutes. And I look forward to ongoing dialogue on the 2024 NFL Draft.